Hello, welcome to our mini application project, Physical Activity Program for Classroom and Off-Task Behavior by Leslie and Sissy. So the research educational problem that we're investigating, just imagine being 5 years old and having to sit in a desk for a half an hour or more listening to the teacher and working quietly. Believe it or not, that does happen in our classrooms. Studies show that this can lead to a lack of focus and even disruptions within the classroom. A few studies have looked into the effectiveness of using frequent movement breaks within the class, but very few have focused on the GoNoodle application specifically. Furthermore, kindergarten students are especially in need of frequent activity and movement, as we all know. This is an investigation regarding the effectiveness of GoNoodle, an exercise application for children, in reducing off-task behavior in a general education kindergarten classroom. Our research purpose is to determine if implementing the GoNoodle application in kindergarten classrooms will result in decreased off-task behaviors. We define off-task behavior as not orienting to the task at hand, playing with given materials instead of using them to engage in the activity, and not following directions that have been given. Our question that we're asking: to what degree can the use of GoNoodle, a computer-based exercise application, decrease off-task behavior in a kindergarten general classroom setting? What did we do to ensure that our research is valid? Well, this study is an example of a single subject, baseline, multiple probe, A, B, A, B. A being the baseline, B being the intervention, then we reverse it back to baseline, then we go back to the intervention. This is designed to exhibit the validity of our intervention. Who are our participants? Well, we chose 2 kindergarten classes that are general education classes to participate in this study. There are 15 students in each class for a total of 30 students. 18 are girls, 12 are boys. Our participant ages were 5 and 6 years old. And 6 of these students, 3 girls, 3 boys, were selected specifically as target participants because of their identified off-task behavior and their lack of interest in physical activity. Now, the selected students were in the same class, and that's our intervention class. Teachers, in addition to observing students who had frequent off-task behaviors, also used a questionnaire which had these 3 questions stated. How often do you play outside? How long do you play outside? Do you play any sports? The students were rated on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest. The target students were identified as having the lowest levels of physical activities, in addition with teacher observation selecting students who had frequent off-task behaviors. The setting for this study is 2 kindergarten classrooms, general education classrooms, where students were going to wear a pedometer to track movement throughout the day. Students were required to attend homeroom where they were assigned a pedometer each day to track their movement. This is another level of our study to see which class, the intervention class or the control class, had the most movement. One class was used as control, the other was used as intervention. Thinking about our independent variables, we know we want the independent variable to influence change in the dependent variable. Our independent variable is the intervention, which is using GoNoodle, an application for students where they dance along with vigorous movements as instructions are provided. Students in the intervention class are participating in GoNoodle for 10 minutes a day. Now, the dependent variable is that off-task behavior. The experimenters want to compare the off-task behavior during baseline and then look at it again during the GoNoodle phase for our intervention classroom. Implementation procedures. 2 kindergarten classrooms are chosen. One classroom will be business as usual, which is our control group. The other classroom will be the intervention classroom in which the GoNoodle intervention will be used. In addition to that, each student is given a pedometer in order to measure their daily steps. Observation is conducted in order to measure the number of off-task occurrences, which we already defined as not orienting to the task at hand, playing with given materials instead of using them to engage, and not following the directions given. In our intervention class, as well as in our control class, observations will be conducted each day from 9:10 until 10:10 in the morning. Baseline data is collected. In both classes, the baseline data will be collected for business as usual. In the intervention class, when the intervention phase is in play, students will engage in the Go Noodle activity from 9:30 to 9:40 a.m. In the control classroom, students will just continue to engage in the normal routine. The daily number of steps will also be measured and recorded for all students in both classrooms. Baseline will be collected for the first week. And again, in both classrooms, that's business as usual. For the next phase, Go Noodle is implemented in the intervention class only during week 2. Data is collected in both classes for off-task behaviors. Week 3, we return to the baseline, business as usual. Data is collected in both classes for off-task behaviors. Then in week 4, in our intervention class, we go back to the Go Noodle activity from 9:30 to 9:40 a.m., and results are recorded and displayed visually for analysis. So how do we make sure that we have a reliable and valid study? Well, when teachers select students, it's based on recurring off-task behaviors, such as by using teacher observation as well as the questionnaire regarding physical activity. 2 observers are trained to assess off-task behaviors. The observers are trained to use partial recording sampling to track targeted behaviors. Those would be our off-task behaviors. We're using a 10-second interval. Each observer will record their observations separately to ensure validity and reliability in the study. And an inter-observer agreement of at least 90% must be attained for the data to be considered valid. The data analysis plan, the data is going to be displayed for visual analysis in each classroom. The occurrence of off-task behaviors will be graphed for each session during each phase. Baseline, then intervention. Then a return to baseline, then a return to the intervention for the intervention class. For the control classroom, it's going to be a baseline occurrence of the off-task behavior. A separate graph will display the total number of steps per classroom per day, and we're hoping to see that the intervention classroom during the intervention phase has a higher number of steps. The rationale for this study. Well, it is shown that exercise can generally be a significant factor in the growth, development, and health of children and adolescents. The effects of physical activity regimens on comprehensive growth can be shown by quantitative and qualitative changes. The significance of physical activity in controlling body weight and maintaining a healthy balance for growing children is at the utmost importance related to this study. Because children and adolescents spend a lot of their time at school, the school environment would be an excellent place for youth to be physically active. However, over the years, many schools have faced budgetary cuts and increasing pressure on teachers to improve academic achievement scores. Therefore, many opportunities for physical activity are being reduced or eliminated. And in a lot of cases, we're seeing off-task behavior that could be related to that. Some studies have shown that regularly scheduled activity breaks may help to reduce that disruptive behavior. However, very few studies have focused specifically on the use of the Go Noodle app and how it might reduce off-task behavior, specifically in kindergarten children. So that's why we wanted to do this study. Now, our reflection, it has become very clear to my partner Leslie and I that there takes a lot of work when you want to design a valid and reliable study. Number one, you must thoroughly review the existing data and existing studies related to this topic of interest. That can be very time consuming, but it is important so that the researcher is able to conduct a socially significant study. Furthermore, much of thought has to be put in to how you're choosing your participants. You want to make sure that the experiment is relating to the specific population that you've asked about in your research question. Furthermore, you want to choose the appropriate design for the study so that you can really show an increase in the validity. So the AB design helps to show those connections. When you're implementing the procedures, you must carry them out with great care and fidelity. That's going to help ensure that it is the conditions that you are implementing with the intervention that are the cause of the increase or decrease of the independent variable. Of the dependent variable. Data collection must be reliable, and inter-observer agreement is a great way to ensure the proper recording of observations. And let me add into that the observers must be explicitly trained on what behavior they're recording and how to record the data correctly. And then once you have that data recorded, you need to make sure that you are able to visually analyze that so that you can note any trends, increases, decreases, so that you can note the rates of behavior correctly. So this was a really good project that helped us become more aware of all that is required when you're doing designing a study that's valid and reliable. Here is a list of references that we used to help us with our research study. Thank you for listening.